We've been sold a corporate fairy tale. For decades, the system told you that empathy, compliance, and soft skills are the keys to the top. But look around you. The people following that script are the exact ones trapped in the snittle, invisible middle management loop. The top 1% don't survive on soft skills. They operate on hard architecture. Nice professionals build teams. Machiavellian professionals engineer empires. It is time to stop playing by the rules of the craft and start rewriting the psychology of absolute dominance. The corporate machine thrives on predictability, and nothing ensures predictability quite like compliance. From day one, professionals are conditioned to believe that being liked, the ultimate metric of modern soft skills, is the passport to the top. This is the compliance trap. When your primary objective becomes seeking validation and avoiding friction, you effectively neutralize your own authority. You become a safe, reliable placeholder in someone else's architecture, blending into the corporate wallpaper. True leadership demands distinct visibility, and visibility requires the courage to disrupt consensus. The top 1% understand that the desperate desire to be liked is a psychological cage that forces you to play small. Elite masters do not seek permission or popularity. They engineer respect through execution. By breaking the addiction to corporate approval, you shift from a compliant bystander to an inevitable force that the system simply cannot ignore. Once you escape the visibility trap of compliance, you must radically alter the currency you trade in. Modern organizations heavily over-index on emotional softness, an exhausting cycle of people-pleasing and fragile empathy that yields zero professional leverage. To engineer true authority, elite masters exchange this depreciating asset for cold psychological leverage. This is not a descent into thoughtless cruelty. It is the execution of precise behavioral architecture. It requires you to read the hidden motives, unspoken fears, and power dynamics of the room, then position yourself as the unbypassable force. While the average professional wastes immense energy managing office feelings, the master operates on strategic impact. True leverage is built when you stop providing emotional comfort and start controlling the psychological narrative. By redefining this currency, you command the room because your strategic value is absolute, undeniable, and completely irreplaceable. Consensus is the burial ground of elite vision. When an entire room agrees, it means the strategy has been diluted to accommodate the lowest common denominator of comfort. While the average professional mistakes consensus for harmony and collaboration, the master recognizes it as institutional stagnation. To build an empire, you must transition from a participant in existing structures to an architect of disruption. This transformation requires an intentional, calculated rejection of the safe middle ground. Elite leaders do not look for a show of hands to validate their direction. They introduce a superior, uncompromised narrative that shatters existing groupthink. They understand that every monumental breakthrough is born out of a refusal to agree with the status quo. By dismantling the illusion of comfortable agreement, you force the environment to adapt to your architecture, establishing absolute authority over a system that others merely follow. Rejecting consensus inevitably generates profound friction, but where the average professional sees an organizational threat, the master recognizes a potent weapon. This is the art of strategic friction, the intentional introduction of controlled chaos into a stagnant corporate system. When you disrupt comfortable operational patterns, you instantly force hidden agendas to the surface and brutally expose the deep vulnerabilities of those who rely entirely on legacy, rules. Controlled chaos serves as the ultimate stress test for institutional authority. By deliberately destabilizing the predictable corporate equilibrium, you create a massive leadership vacuum that only an elite architect is equipped to fill. While the compliant masses panic in the absolute absence of a safe formula, the master steps forward to command the reset. You do not merely manage the chaos, you actively deploy it to rewrite the structural hierarchy. Authority is never handed out in times of peace. It is seized by the one who masterfully navigates the friction they engineered. To survive the vacuum created by strategic friction, you must dismantle the very structures that breed weak, compartmentalized thinking, the silos. Modern organizations divide knowledge into artificial boxes: marketing, operations, finance, or strategy, forcing professionals to rely on rigid, pre-packaged legacy formulas. This systemic fragmentation is a compliance mechanism designed to keep you specialized, dependent, and ultimately replaceable. The master completely demolishes these silos to claim absolute sovereignty. Sovereignty is the state of total strategic independence, where you no longer answer to a singular department, but command the entire ecosystem. By intentionally blending separate, seemingly opposing disciplines, merging neuroscience with ruthless power dynamics, or high-level data with raw execution, you engineer a unique, hybrid excellence that cannot be replicated. You cease to be a functional component inside a predefined machine and instead become the master architect who understands exactly how every single gear turns. While legacy followers remain trapped inside their narrow departmental boxes, terrified to step over the lines, the sovereign professional operates completely above the grid. This cross-disciplinary mastery fundamentally shifts your loyalty away from corporate formulas, granting you unassailable autonomous institutional power. The final escalation of this professional architecture is not merely about changing your force. It requires a fundamental, permanent rewiring of your psychology. The average professional spends an entire career trapped in the paralyzing illusion that when corporate rules are absolute truths, blindly following legacy scripts directly to their own stagnation. The master, however, views the entire corporate landscape through a completely different lens, not as a rigid structure to be feared and obeyed, but as an active, dynamic chessboard to be decoded and completely dominated. This profound cognitive transformation permanently shifts your internal loyalty away from rigid formulas and attaches it entirely to the ultimate purpose of your craft. When you break the addiction to asking for permission, you stop playing the low-stakes game of survival and begin engineering the ultimate architecture of supremacy. You realize that rules are simply systemic constraints left behind by past victors to keep future competitors safely compliant. By deliberately blending neuroscience, strategic friction, and cross-disciplinary hybrid excellence, you completely overwrite the mental conditioning of an obedient follower and awaken the mind of a sovereign architect. You no longer seek to fit into a pre-existing machine. You build a new paradigm where you dictate the exact terms of execution. This is the ultimate destination of the elite rebellion, the complete transition from a lifetime of passive compliance to absolute, unassailable professional mastery. The old game is officially over. Your empire begins now.